Minions, everyone's favorite comfort character. Funny little yellow marshmallows on the outside, but blood, hungry, and war-driven at heart. Not long ago, a person asked the question, where were the Minions during World War II? Now it was said they were frozen in a cave for some time. But what about where were they on 9/11? Now before I dive into this, I just want to say that this is completely satirical, and yeah. Now after doing some research into Minion lore, it's been known that Minions served the most powerful and evil person during that time period. This is when we begin to introduce Gru into the picture. Gru was born in the 1960s, and the Minions began to follow him in 1976, and they continued to follow him all the way up until the latest Despicable Me movie. So it really begs the question, would the Minions leave Gru to join a certain terrorist leader and join in certain terror attacks? Now, many people are going to say, well, the Minion universe is completely separate from that of the real world, and I would beg to differ. Looking back at the first Minions movie, they had begun serving certain historical figures of the world, that being the likes of Napoleon and Pharaoh, but they also served fictional characters such as Dracula and others. So it begs the question, did Osama bin Laden exist within the Minions universe? I'm going to say it's completely plausible that bin Laden was in this universe, based on the implementation of historical figures with the likes of Queen Elizabeth and Napoleon. Now, going off this basis, would they have served bin Laden during his time of terror? First off, the founding of Al-Qaeda was during 1988. Now, I would assume that the Minions would still be operating under the likes of Gru right now, and having lived in the US with a large stream of news sources pumping out these stories to the population, it can be inferred that the Minions would have heard about this news. Now, Al-Qaeda, when formed in 1988, was not immediately labeled as a terrorist organization, and the Minions would have no reason to leave Gru at this point. Now in 1992, Al-Qaeda bombed hotels in Aden, Yemen, holding US servicemen. This, considered by many, was the first hostile act that could lead to the group being listed as a terrorist organization. Bin Laden then continued to take action and wrote a religious decree against US troops. In 1998, Al-Qaeda carried out bombings on the US Embassy in Kenya and Tanzania, killing over 200 people and injuring thousands. Seeing all these events play out, the Minions would begin to consider joining bin Laden's forces. Now, could bin Laden be considered the most evil and worst person during the specific time period? Probably. And with the Minions living in the United States at the time, they would be susceptible to Western media outlets, and then would believe bin Laden is the most dangerous person in the world at the given moment. The real question that would be asked is if the Minions would leave Gru to join Al-Qaeda. 100%. The Minions long for evil nature. It's the whole reason why they do what they do. I would assume that roughly 25% of the Minion population would join Al-Qaeda, as they view bin Laden as the most evil person in the world. Others have some sense of morality and would stick with Gru, as he is also doing evil at this time, just not on the level of bin Laden. So, once the Minions succumb to Western media, they would then hop on a flight to Afghanistan and begin looking for bin Laden. Many of these Minions would begin wondering what their roles would be like under Osama. Well, I believe their primary role would be that of espionage. Minions, on a face value, are very cute looking creatures, and with their lack of critical thinking skills, not many would suspect them or rather view them as a threat. This could easily allow them to bypass certain security levels. So as long as bin Laden has enough money to help fund the Minions with bananas, they should be happy. Now I want to say this, the Minions are naive and super easily susceptible to being evil and doing evil things, but they don't necessarily understand to the extent of their crimes and impact it may have on the overall populace. So in their mind, they're doing what just comes naturally. So could you really blame them? So when bin Laden approaches the Minions to pilot planes during this period, they were hesitant. Minions, although evil, have never committed such heinous acts. They enjoy destruction, but not at the cost of innocent human lives. They're used to stealing and committing petty theft, so this was a level that they were not used to. So, knowing this, they sat this one out and watched. As days rolled by, they were left in horror of what bin Laden has done and caused. They had a change of heart. They knew this was a villain, but not a monster. After days of deliberation among the Minion crew, they decided to take matters into their own hands. They began to alert Homeland Security of the location of bin Laden. They have now also joined SEAL Team 6. They all pursued bin Laden and took him out, making them true American patriots at the end of the day. But still longing for a life of crime and theft, they returned to Gru, and the rest is history. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen. The Minions now have to live the rest of their immortal lives knowing what they had done and what they had ultimately caused. It makes you wonder, do they really feel bad for what they did? Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys another day. Later.